one thing we're going to have a quick sort of look at, we're not going to go too much into depth of this because there's just literally so many settings, is the actual island settings. Now, if we click on the island settings in our outliner, what we have here, I'm just going to extend this out, is we have a list of, in the lower panel here, details panel, we have a list of different things from game rules, game settings, and UE settings, and just going to sort of highlight some of what I think are the primary ones here. So if you want to find out what all of this does, please do look at the documentation. Some of the things are missing from it, so I assume that that's coming out in a sort of an update for Unreal for Fortnite. So you may sort of see stuff in the document that's not here in Unreal Engine. So we've got things like voice chat, so whether that's in a team or not. Maximum players, this can go up to 100. I believe this is, if it's divided equally, it will be 50 versus 50. So obviously that's the amount of players that can be loaded into your game. Your sort of preset sort of teams, so it's a free-for-all, is just like, you know, everybody's killing everybody, or co-op. You can set your own custom ones here as well. Team size, we got sort of dynamic, so it will sort of fill in as needed. I believe dynamic will also allow you to switch yourself, so if you wanted to be in the opposing team, you can. Split evenly explains itself. It will split 50-50, and then teams of 4, 3, 2, 1. Then when we scroll around, you've got things like total rounds here. So if you have, say, something like a Valorant or something like that where it requires rounds to play, you can increase the rounds here, and also dictate like how the game win conditions are, so how many rounds they've won, or the score, so you know if it's the first one to 10 deaths. We've also got things to do with like joining, lobbies and things like that. If we scroll down, we can set our elimination score. In the sort of game settings here, we've got things like the time of day, so we can set the sort of time of day here, and that will dictate in the game world, if we want it day, night, whatever. There's things here to do with camera filters. These are sort of things that you probably want to look at further down the line, so you can give it sort of different types of looks. This is not really that important. Setting things like the light brightness, so if obviously we don't want it, too garish or things like that, we can choose here. Same with the colours. Fog thickness, that's quite good for basically, dictating how thick the fog is. Again, fog color as well, that fits in. They're sort of all handy for level design. We've got things here like a maximum amount of health for our player, so we can give it like a starting health. So say we only want a player to 10% health, we can, and we can increase obviously the player to be some super powerful character if we wanted to. We can allow health recharge, so a bit similar to like Master Chief in Halo. When the player runs and hides, you can set the delay amount and then it will recharge. We can have a shield as well, set the levels with that. So these are all handy little things to add into your game mode. We've also got things, or future game modes, sorry, things like ammo. So if you wanted a game that was just continuously non-stop shooting, if you weren't too worried about picking up stuff like resources, consumables, things like that, you can just set infinite ammo, consumables, and resources. We've also got sort of settings to things like auto aim. So if you wanted on a keyboard or mouse, you would probably want to disable auto aim, or enable it for things like controllers. You can allow building, so if you want the Fortnite style building, you can decide what you want to, whether it's going to be traps, buildings, everything, nothing. You can also look into things like environment damage, so they can dictate whether every player will be able to damage everything, or only you can damage what you build. So say you build a house, only you can damage it, nobody else can. So if you think like Minecraft, where you get people in there that will blow up your house, that can kind of sort of stop, from what I understand, that. And then we've got the structure damage here, so we can look here whether we can damage our own, damage anything the team's built, damage anything the enemy's built, etc., etc. Weapon destruction, so I think from what I understand with this, allows you to basically set the amount of damage a weapon can do. So for instance, you probably want something like a rocket launcher can do more damage than a pistol or something like that. This just allows you to do it here. Then you've got the pickaxe, so they'd be similar to Fortnite's pickaxe, where they can hammer down buildings, things like that. Then we want to look at things like item drops. As you can see here, there is so many things to go through, and it's sort of, this is the place to look really if you're looking for something specific related to your game. I'm just trying to point out some of the more important ones here, like fall damage, for instance. If you jump off a cliff, do you want fall damage? Yes or no? You can set obviously things like the gravity, so you can make some like a sort of sci-fi space shooter that the dome, for instance, could be on the moon or something like that, and you're jumping around in without gravity. We've got mantling, so that allows you to sort of jump up on things. Hurdling. This allows you sort of sprinting and how much it costs per stamina, things like that. Here's your energy amount. Allows slide kicks, shoulder bashes, all sorts. So shoulder bashing, I was imagining it is from memory, is when you're sort of running through a door, it smashes the door down with your shoulder. We've got things like the glider, so we can set whether we want that to be deployable after the players jumped in. For instance, if we're recreating Fortnite, once it's being used, can they redeploy it? Yes or no? We've got sort of things here that affect the when you've been eliminated, how much you get back on death. So it can, maybe you don't want your players to be completely without materials or whatever. We've also got in the UE settings things related to our timer. So if we've got a 10-minute timer, we can sort of have countdowns, things like that, to set times we've got here. We've team scores. So obviously if you want to display your team scores, which I'm sure in a lot of game modes you will, because you want to know, how far ahead your competitor is or how far behind. We've also got things like displaying the scoreboard. So when you hit the, I think it's the M key on the keyboard, it'll show the scoreboard of how many deaths, things like that. Obviously career board, because it's explainable, sort of how well you progressed throughout your sort of time playing the game. Map, we can allow that, if we need to show the sort of the world, so to speak. You can dictate whether you show the scoreboard, the map, or whatever was last open, so you decide what you want to show as a priority here if you want to show it. Things related to your sounds, you can choose what kind of sound you want here. Then that is, like, looking at it, that's really it. As I said, if you want, you can go into all of this and it could be ridiculously long, and we want to try and avoid that. This is just trying to point out some of the things that this contains, because I've been asked a few times, where do you go and set these modes, and some of these things. We will be looking at things like custom game modes later, but for now this was the place to look. If you're just looking for a bit of direction of where to go, this is the place to look. And then if you want to look into sort of like more in-depth stuff about everything here, the best place to do is check the documentation, because that's it's very clear on what it is. Again, some of the stuff is missing. That's on the documentation in Unreal Engine. My guess is that this is actually a slightly older version of what we will be getting soon. So some of these things, new things, will be starting to appear. Like there was actually like a voice chat distance. So you in the documentation, that would allow you to sort of say, well, if the player is 100 meters away from me, I can't hear him, things like that. So there's all sorts of things like that. Now we're going to look at how to open a sort of pre-built map section from Fortnite in the editor. This is just to sort of give you an idea of how things are laid out, and it may help you to sort of fiddle about with things that we've learned here and add it to their levels. So what we can do here is we go File, New Level, and you can see here we brought up with this. Now this is similar to that sort of initial loading screen we had when setting up our project. And what we can do here is we can just select any of these sort of pre-built maps here. I'm sure if you're a Fortnite player, you probably recognize some of these. Some of these I do, some of them I don't. But I can hardly say that I'm a professional Fortnite player. So what we'll do is we'll click on the Tilted Towers, just double click, and what that'll do is that'll load up our project. What we will find is when we go in it, you'll find that the camera moves very slow. So what we can do here, first of all, is if we just select something in the scene, we can also do that in the outliner. I've just clicked anything and then press F on the keyboard. That will zoom us straight in. So we can do that with anything. You can click on like this wall piece here, zoom straight to it. And then what we can do is you can see if we move through the world, it's quite slow. So what we can do up here is if we click this camera speed button, we can adjust this. So this will allow us to then move a lot faster through the scene. So as you can see here, this is a section from Fortnite. You know, it might be a previous section. And you can see here how it's constructed. You can grab sort of, you know, pieces of the bridge and things like that. We can say, go over to this, click on it, and then move our transforms. Remember, if you don't have that, you can press spacebar to skip through the different types. So, you know, so suddenly we can sort of just break some of these rooms apart and things like that. It gives you an idea of how sort of they've laid out the levels and things like that. It's a kind of very good thing to look at to get an idea of how they've constructed things. You know, even for someone like myself looking at thinking, oh, you know, they haven't done that. I would have thought they would have done this all as one piece, but they haven't. They've just got separate pieces here and things like that. So it's very interesting to see from a learning point of view how this is all put together. So you see here the trailers separate from all the palettes and that, but then that allows you to sort of customize what's on the trailer. So if you had loads of sort of, say, a lorry park here, you can all have different things on the back of the trailer, things like that. So this was just a very quick look at that. If you want to play it, you can just hit launch session. That'll take you in. And you can just have a little run around it and destroy things and things like that. You can see here, which we'll look at later, is that these green things here sort of edges are splines, and what a spline does is that allows you to create one piece of road and then almost sort of drag it down the sort of just drag it out, and it will automatically create the road for you. So it saves you from having to sort of, you can see this one's got a little point here. It saves you from having to basically place loads of different types of road and things like that. You can easily assemble roads very, very quickly, as you can see here. It's got some lovely water over here as well. You can see how they handle sort of seeing bits in the distance, like these things you can't reach, but they're there sort of as a sort of, when a person looking out, they're like, oh, what's over there, you know, things like grass here. We've got lovely sort of things, how the foliage editor works and things like that. So yeah, this is just a quick look of how to open up one of the maps in there and then just check out how some of these things are assembled. Perhaps look at things like when you click on something over the right hand side, you've got sort of textures here and all sorts, so you can sort of have a play around with these and see what they do. Yeah, you see they've got mirrored features, so they can switch everything around. So this sort of gives you a very good idea of how a small section of Fortnite is assembled. What we're going to look at now is what is considered kind of very important in game development when sort of designing levels and that. And it may seem boring to some, others may find it very interesting, but I do think it's worth sort of mentioning this because I think it could help in the long run. And what it is greyboxing. Now, you may or may not have seen sometimes in these sort of behind the scenes on games, sort of a very well-known one is, I think it was Uncharted 3 or 4. They showed a sort of behind the scenes where everything was grey boxed, and it showed you sort of everything was really rough, but it gave you a good insight of how the sort of game industry works. And what this allows you to do is basically it puts out sort of shapes, so you know, nothing with detail, and it allows you to assemble things very quickly. And what it allows you to do is basically play test your idea. So you might have this great idea in your head, but when you actually start playing it, it's really boring. So what it allows you to do then is to sort of tweak it and adjust it until you find something that is exciting. And then what you do is you either decorate it yourself with the final assets, or you send it off to, you know, environment artists or scene dressers and things like that that will then take it and turn it into something beautiful. Sort of a good case and example here is, imagine these two people were fighting sort of over a distance, you know, obviously slightly longer than this, over a distance, is that you wouldn't want them just fighting in an empty space because it becomes boring. So what you would do is you'd break up the sort of what's in between them to perhaps help them get an advantage over each other. But it's always got to feel sort of kind of fair, because you don't want, say, the person on the left here having a complete advantage over the person here and they're just sort of stuck in a corner and can't get out. So it allows you to play test all these things. So we actually have some of this in Fortnite. So what we can do is press Control Space, and we want to locate the Fortnite folder. If we click the little arrow or enter the Fortnite folder and go to Meshes, and I believe it's basic shape. Hang on, give me a sec here. Where is it? That's it, sorry, Greybox. And so we want to select Greybox. And what here is we've got sort of loads of different sort of pieces of the Greybox, essentially. Now, if we go to floors, for instance, we double click on that. And what that's going to do is we'll just turn away from these two people for the minute. I could have just gone the other side. And we're literally going to drag this into the scene. So what this will do, this is the way they've set it up is it will automatically lock. If you notice, we can't pull it away. So it'll automatically lock so that you know what you're doing is not going to sort of like you place it and then it's half over things and then you get things like Z fighting, which is often where it sort of is fighting backwards and forwards. So what you can see here is if we hold Alt and drag, it creates a duplicate. And so we've created what we'll do is we'll create a sort of 3x2 floor here. And so we've got our sort of little floor here. And then what we want to do is add, say, a second floor. So we can select all these, so we want them the same height. If I select them all properly, drag these up, again holding Alt, and you can see straight away we've got 2 floors now. Now we can go back into our Greybox and we want to look for, say, walls. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, we want, say, let's have a look, let's try and find one with the window. So we drag these in, one with a window, and we want a window here, and we're going to sort of drag and duplicate that, and a window here, and we're going to have another window at the end here, and one this side. So we've got our sort of windows placed, and we can obviously select different variations of windows. We've got double window here. So what we'll do is we'll say, well, we want for this one double window, and then we can say, right, what we need now is we want just a straight wall. So we'll put that in there. And as you can see, what happens here is it's starting to sort of obviously resemble a building. Obviously, it doesn't look fancy. That's not the purpose of what Greyboxing is doing. It is to test how, so say you've got a team of people doing this, you've got some people working on the PlayStation, things like that, but you've got this clear idea in your head of how things should look, be laid out. This is where Greyboxing comes in, and it becomes incredibly sort of powerful in what you need it to do. Once you get an understanding of it, sort of really helps get your ideas sort of laid out and things like that. So you can see there, we've done that. So what we'll do is we'll do just sort of very quick here. One of the advantages that's over Unreal Engine is the way they set up the Greyboxing assets. This is actually something we're looking personally, is that they all snap together, so you know that you're not sort of overlapping each other and things like that. So yeah, I mean, what we'll do there, see if there's any stairs. Obviously, I'm not going to spend hours doing this. We just got some straight stairs. Yeah, that'll do there. So you can see here that the stairs have no real detail. They're interior stairs. So let's put them to this side here. No real detail, but it allows us to do sort of get a rough idea of what we want. So obviously we can make very complicated things with this. So now what happens if we go to push changes, or I've got a session connected, so you would click session connect or connect to session, and this is just going to push all of my edits to the Fortnite game that I've got running in the background here. And this is then going to allow us to play it, and well, in theory. So what happens here, as you can see here, I've got my Fortnite game, and you can see the structure that I've built here, and I can run around in it, and run upstairs here. Let's see, probably can't shoot it because it's got no health added to it. We pick this up, so we can, no ammo, as you can see here, I'm out of ammo. But we can now run around our ideas here, and you can see here that, like, if you were actually properly play testing this, is that you'd want to break up the room here so that you've got sort of the person on the other side. You're not just going boom boom backwards and forwards. You would be breaking up the scene. So obviously somewhere like this gives you an advantage, and you could have something similar like a shop counter in the middle there and things like that. So this allows you to sort of properly play test everything and know that it's going to be okay when you play it. Now what we'll look in the next part of this is how to use the sort of creative controls. Now I believe these are the same controls that are actually used inside of Fortnite, and as you can see here I've triggered them here, but we'll look at that in the next part. Previously we looked at how to create a simple grey box thing. sort of building here like we see. One thing that we can do is we can do some of this inside of the actual game itself as well. What this allows us to do is sort of duplicate things and sort of extend what we've got here. How we do this is if we hit P on the keyboard, and what we can do is we can just point at an asset, for instance, like this, and then select a number on the keyboard, and you'll see that this gets added to that number. Now, what we can do here is if we do, say, number 2 as well, when we press 2 on the keyboard, that switches us to here, and what allows us to do is basically select a grid position we want to put it on, and press left on the mouse button, and it allows us to put down these pieces. So now suddenly what we've got here is we've got an extension to our building. Now if we hit 1, we can now add some windows. We're going to put, say, a few windows here, and you can see very quickly how this can be very quick at basically creating scenes, almost quicker than what we were doing in the viewport, depending on how sort of used you are to using game controls and things like that. If you want to clear basically what we had there, so if we press 3, add this wall, and we're still in the sort of creator mode, so to speak, if we right click, that takes us out of the wall there, and you can see my character is now stuck. But what we can do is we can select a piece here, from what I understand, press X, that deletes that part of the wall. So suddenly now we have an extended building here that allows us to add more to it. So what we can do here is say, well, we want number 4 to be, we don't want that, number 5, and we want to move back here, and we want to add these stairs in. So what we can do here is add the stairs there, perhaps obviously not the best position to put them in, but it gives you a good idea of how it works. We can do it there as well, and suddenly we've got some stairs we can run up. This works obviously very similar to the sort of build mode that they've got, from what I understand, in Fortnite. I was more of a Fortnite player that likes to just shoot without the build mode, and so I was a bit sort of late to the party on it. But obviously, if you're comfortable with the build mode, you'll know exactly how this works. So I thought I'd just show you that, because that allows you to basically create a lot faster as well when you're greyboxing scenes. Once you've got the key assets in there, you can duplicate them, etc., and very quickly sort of like do what we've just done here, really. So what we're going to look at in the next part is using the assets that are in basically the sort of creator aspect of Unreal here, Unreal for Engine. I'm not exactly sure what it's called. Is it creator mode or something like that? Creative toolsets, I believe. And so we're going to be looking at that, which is going to allow people that don't have any knowledge of art styles, things like that, and just want to sort of create their own little experiences, can very quickly. So we'll be looking at that in the next video. Now we're going to look at some of the sort of cool stuff within this for people that perhaps don't have the knowledge of creating their own assets, things like that, but obviously want to get involved, and or maybe just want to start here and it's sort of a place to get started. Now we've seen here that in our previous sort of video we created a sort of little grey box thing here. If we hit double tap spacebar and hold spacebar, that allows us to fly. So if we hold it, it allows us to fly higher. I just added a little bit of a roof on here and things like that. So we can see here that we added that. If we double tap again, that stops us from flying. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the sort of content that comes within Fortnite. And if we hit P on the keyboard again, and then we're going to hit tab. So what this does is this is going to take us to the sort of creative section, and this shows here we've got all pre-built buildings, all sorts of stuff here. We can do show all, and what that allows us, obviously we can whittle down, if we're looking for just cathedrals, we've got stuff like that. But what this allows us to do is check out how perhaps you want to look at how they've created something, or you just want to use some of the assets they've got available. What we can do is, let's have a look. Say we'll go back to that which one was it? The Citadel. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this sort of watchtower here. So what we can do is we can we've got two options here. We can click on it and equip it. So that's added it to number 7, or we can open it, and what that does is that shows us all of the assets that are attached to this. So that allows us to, say we like the look of this, or we wanted to add our own parts to it, we can then instantly go to what is connected here, and then basically add elements of this to it. So if we wanted to add more crates, walls, whatever, they're all here. But what we're going to do for the minute is we're just going to look at this. So what we're here to do is we'll go back, and with that added to our thing, so we've equipped it, we'll just hit tab and that takes us back. You see the lights going down here, looking very pretty. Now what we can do is we can press our number that represents the castle that we've got here, so that in my case is 7, and we can place it. So we can use obviously fly if we want, and that allows us to place it. You can see instantly this has been added. So what this obviously allows us to do, sorry I'm pressing every button under the sun here, is we've obviously made a little bit of a mistake here. So can we undo? Let's have a look what we've got. For the purposes of this video, to come back to here, you can see here I didn't connect it to the floor, and so it's my fault. So what we're going to do is go 7 again, going to plonk it down. There we go. So now we've got, let's just move out of the way here because I've got very close to everything. So there we go. So we've got our sort of Fortnite castle here. You can see that we can run into it. Doors open. This is all pre-built. We can run up to the top. It also gives you a very good idea of how things are assembled. So, you know, we can look at this and go, ah, yeah, I see how they've put the castle together. We should be able to sort of, I'd imagine, demolish this. Perhaps it's not set up to do that. No, it's not set up to do that. But it gives you a very good idea of how that works. What we can also do here is if we hit tab again, we can also look at some of the other stuff here. We've got sort of the asset gallery. So this is pretty much what I said before, where we can look at say, for instance, castle. We can see all assets that are sort of attached together to represent a castle. So we, you know, if we wanted to go in here and look for flags and stuff like that, they're all there. Devices, things like motorbikes, spawners, which obviously are quite important. People that play Fortnite will probably know a lot of these. Myself, some of them I do recognise, like the van and things like that when playing, but you know, a lot of them I don't. Weapons, what we can do here is we can sort of equip, select a weapon we want, equip it, and say we want a shotgun as well, and we want a whatever that is, another shotgun. No, we don't want another shotgun. That, and what we can do is then press, I believe it's drop. And then when we head back to the game, you can see they're on the floor here. So we can pick them up. And that's now added to our inventory. So if we exit to build mode by pressing P, then you can see now they're in the bottom here. So we should be able to inflict damage to our map. Obviously, very sorry that sound's coming through, but there's not much I can do about that. But it sort of gives you an idea here that now we can break through our castle and we've got it. So what this allows us to do is obviously very quickly, we can say, right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to click on that, hit P. For instance, we could aim at, copy it. How do we copy? Copy. No. Well, if this won't fill, I'll look into how we remove that. How we clear our sort of numeric pad here. But what we can do is we can instead press tab. We're going to go in prefabs. We're going to look for our castle, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for, say, the Citadel main bridge. Equip it, and not a clue what this is going to obviously look like. It could be very big, which it is, but that's going to do us fine for what we want to do. So you can see here straight away that we've sort of got a big bridge here that you could sink underwater if you wanted to, things like that. So we can then just go back to build mode, and we're going to sort of add, say, another tower here and things like that. Obviously, you've got to take into mind that some of this doesn't connect together properly, perhaps. So you have to take that into mind when designing things. You can see here, there's not a door here, but there's nothing stopping us from sort of, say, going into here and going, right, press X, that deletes the door. So we've got a way into the castle now, and you know, knock out the floor. Obviously, this is very rough, but you would add stairs and things like that. But you can see here straight away that gives us an access point in. So the reason I've showed you this is that obviously it gives you access to so many assets here, as you can see, that we can use to sort of create towns and things like that. And it also gives you access to all of these sort of assets used, so that you can create your own experiences, like, you know, trees, all sorts. You know, it's very handy what we can do here. As you see here, if we run out of sort of space, we can actually say click on that and then just select what we want to equip it to. So that's found out our issue earlier that we're having with the walls there. So we can then go back and say, well, I want to let's go out here. I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard, and that's going to add whatever this is, a forest by the looks of it. And you can see here we've got a little forest. And so this is obviously, by the looks of it, set up for us to be able to duplicate these so that we can take them and we can say, right, I want that tree, I'm going to add a load of forest of trees, or I want that big tree, I'm going to add another forest of trees, etc. Things like that. So as you can see with this is incredibly handy. This can be, from what I understand, used on the consoles as well. So you can all work together. It's not just limited to you have to create via the PC. Obviously, PC has its added benefits. But you can see here this can very quickly allow you to create little levels and tests and things like that and get you up and running on your own game modes. So one thing I forgot to mention in the previous part of this video was obviously how do you rotate and resize assets. So it's kind of an important thing now, otherwise you'll just have straight lines all the time. So what we can do here is that if we press P to make sure that we're in the sort of editor mode here, and if we left click on the mouse, left click out with our sort of asset highlighted that we want to duplicate, left click, that copies for us, and if we want to cut it, right click, and you can see here it's gone, but we're just going to copy it. So left click to copy it, and say we want to basically rotate this. So what we can do here is that if we hit or press E or R, you can see here that it rotates in different positions. So E rotates clockwise, counterclockwise, and R rotates clockwise. We can also change the axis of this as well. So say we want to put our bush like that, but we want to rotate it sort of upright. What we can do here is we can change the axis. So by pressing tab, I believe it is, that changes our axis. So now when we press E, you can see here that we are now pointing up. We can also change the axis again to sort of spin it. I'm trying to sort of explain this in a sort of logical way without it getting too complicated. So if I press tab again, you can see here now it's rotating like that. So that gives us a very sort of quick idea of how to rotate. And what we can do also is resize. So what I'm just going to do is set this back down to there and spin that round. But say we want to make this smaller so we can sit it on top of our hedge, or bigger, so we're going to make it bigger. So we can hold R on the mouse, the right mouse button, and that changes us to the scaling mode. So you can see over the left here it's changed to like grow and shrink. So what we can do here is we can decide whether we want to resize all axes. So that's going to do everything, and it's going to do it sort of uniformly so it's not a mess. So again, it's ENR resizing. We can change what axis we want to. So by pressing tab, it's going to change the width. So you can see here. And then we've got, again, the depth. So we can see on the edge here, the depth. And then we've got the height. And so we want the width. And we're just going to change the width so that when we stick it on top of our hedge here, and again, we can press spacebar to fly. We're going to stick it on top of our hedge here, and we've got like a mini Stonehenge. And so that shows us how to basically copy and cut assets, rotate assets in all directions, and scale assets.